Just briefly, we like this plant. Remember with barberry, especially the yellow barberry, you have to really watch for bacterial spotting. So anybody who plans on keeping these on the lot for a period of time really needs to understand barberry and have a bacterial spot spray program. That's important, but it does fairly well for resistance to that. But it's an overall nice, uniform, upright gold barberry. So next is grass morning lights. So as you can see here on the photo on the right, we're really starting to see some activity on the grass. So we're starting to look like something. Morning lights is kind of one of those mid-range kind of growers. It's not a dwarf by any means, but it's not going to get as big as like a gracilis or something like that. So it's kind of right there in the mid-range. It kind of gets a bronzy type of plume towards late summer there. It's a very adaptable grass, and we have some availability there going on with grass in general. I'll just talk about it on this one here. It's important that you watch for rust. So with rust, like a lot of diseases, morning waters only, or water at a time where the foliage, you either water when the foliage is going to dry very quickly or water during the dew time. Try to keep the foliage as dry as possible, and it is important if you're going to keep these for a period of time that you have a program in place to control rust. So spraying is critical. Once they're in the landscape, rust isn't a huge of a problem unless we're into a real rainy period. It's more of an issue with overhead irrigation. Next is variegated grass or variegata. You see there, this is the old standby variegata. It's still a very popular grass, especially for the landscape side of things. Very tough grass, very adaptable, a little bit hardier than some of the other grasses out there. So that's why it's stuck around for so long. It gets a nice plume later in the season, good variegation. So it lends itself to a lot of interest out there. And we got some nice availability, and you can see there from the photo in the nursery, you're starting to see that variegation now coming up with the foliage. So it's starting to look like something instead of landing, kind of a pot with just a little bit of growth. We're starting to really get some growth pushing up out of the pot. So next is hydrangea. So go into limelight. Limelight has been around for actually quite a while now. One of Proven Winners' original first big push introductions, but it's still very popular. Don't have a photo from the nursery, but Cheryl will get that in there. But we got nice size plants out there. There's no issues with the size of the plant. Everybody knows it's the lime green flower that changes to white. Very adaptable plant. We really love it because the canes are very strong canes. It tends to hold that flower up. So that's why it's so popular, and it continues to be a strong seller out there. And also its hardiness, extremely hardy. So. And we got real good availability on there. That's not surprising that we have that many available. That's probably a good thing, because hydrangeas are more of a summertime. The paniculattas are more of a summertime bloom. So I would expect that to really start turning on and towards mid to late May. So we're thinking about that with our trimming also. We got some split trims going on to make sure that we have really fresh plants out there, nice big fresh plants for mid to end of May into June to keep the crops rolling. So Potentilla, this one is a new one, Bellissima, and then we have Bella Sol. Bella Sol is the orange, and Bellissima is kind of a multicolor one. You'll be seeing that here. It's probably going to be another 2 weeks Bellasol is pretty much ready. It's just to the edge of the pot, but we got good growth, excellent root growth on it. Starting to see some buds in there, but nothing's open yet. So, don't sell the flower color yet, but it's very close. So we decided to go ahead and get it on. They are in a covered situation where they're getting some heat at night. So we continue to push them along. So we'll see some pretty rapid development here throughout the weekend as well. So they'll progress pretty quick, and I would expect to start seeing some flower development into next week. This is a very hardy plant, but until it can be misunderstood, especially in our area, it needs a fairly well-drained area, but when it's flushing in a container, it can require a lot of water. But then once summer hits, you really got to back the water way up. So it takes different requirements throughout the year, especially in a container. Planting in the ground, you definitely want to tend towards a drier, well-drained area to be more successful with it. Its native ranges are going to be, you find them all throughout the Rockies, all through there. You find them, you see them growing in Yellowstone, and all up in through there. Their native range runs through that, very well-drained soils. They can really push the hardiness down, but the big trick is you got to find the right soils to be successful. But plants are looking good, and we're excited about them. Next is Goldfinger. Had this one for a very long time on standby. We only produce this in a 2-gallon. You can see here we got real nice development going on. We put a small number of the crop on for now, as you can see through the crop. Some of them are a little smaller in there, but we're going to be pulling the bigger ones like Cheryl pulled out there, and we'll continue to add them on as we progress through the season. This is the yellow flower one, and I think everybody pretty much understands this one here. The same goes as the Bellasol, the same techniques. And next, I think it's our last one, is a new one. It's called Pink Sparkler. Really like this one. This is coming through the first edition program. This one here, they spent a little bit of time thinking about hardiness. You can see there zone 3. This breeding was done up in through Minnesota. Extremely tough spirea. So you can really push the envelope on this. Chicago, upper Michigan, way up in through Minnesota, up and through there. You can even go to the Dakotas and not have any issue with this plant. That's one part of it. The other part of it was the flower. It's very striking. The neon-y, the glow of the flower. You can really pick it out from a distance when it blooms. So those are the 2 strong selling points. It also has great resistance. There's a lot of the new Cocktail out there that have great resistance to bacterial spot, but this one also has that as well. So very good disease resistance. So for any of you guys up in the northern climates that have anybody that always has a concern, I'm always looking for something real hardy. Boom, right there. This is a great one. We got some availability. Lead with this one in a conversation. And you can see there from the size in the nursery, we got good size on this 3. That's what I got.
Well, first up, this maple is actually discontinued in the plant. It's Ryusin. We still have some inventory left. We have some in the summer bucket. We'll be evaluating those next week to see if we can roll them in. There will be probably 1 or 2 grades added. We do have some shorter ones, so we'll get you some pictures. When I went in and looked up on this plant, I really liked the planter because it showed a different thing that you can do with a weeping plant. We've talked about this in the past, but this is a really good picture. You see they just planted it, let it grow. We've talked about weeping plants in the past. You can get them up 6 to 10 feet. It depends upon how you train them, what you do with them. You see we have some taller ones here, And we're also gonna have some shorter ones that are only gonna be in the 18, 24-inch high, so we'll get you some pictures next week along with some pricing. The other thing that I liked here was it shows the fall color, which is really good in Ryusin. And they also put it over a trellis walkway there. Typically you see roses like that, so there was just a couple different things that popped up that were really interesting. Ryusin is one of the only palmatums truly weeping. It is a green leaf weeper. It is not a dissectum, so it has a full palmate style leaf. Does a good job as far as growing. As you can see, they're nice and full. And there again, you can get them up to 6 to 10 feet high and wide. So typical of Jap maples, they will tolerate some adverse soil conditions, but for the most part, they like well-drained conditions. The zone 5 to 9 plant, you can see there's various shades as far as the variegation on them. When they first come out, you're going to have that pinkish. Depending upon the amount of sunlight will depend upon what you have throughout the course of the year. If you go to the lower left picture there, that's later in the season, and you see for the most part it's green, so most of that variegation has faded away. The other thing of note on this is if you look at the bark and the plant on the internal, you will see some red and or pink striping in the bark as well. So that's one of the telltale signs, but you will get a fair amount of white to pink to green in the variegation. This plant will get 8 to 12 feet high, 6 to 8 foot wide, so it's more of a vase shape. If you put it in full sun and you've got it in a lot of white on it, it will burn. So it does prefer partial shade. And you can use it as a specimen or in a planter, patio, pot, etc. Moving on here, Allium medusa. This is common name here is ornamental onion. This is a selection out of Walters. It's only 18 to 24 inches high and wide. It's a nice short plant. It has a bluish green foliage. Gives you these nice little puff balls. This is a late summer or early fall bloomer. Does a good job. Very easy to grow, like most ornamental onions. And we typically get these in as bare root in the fall, so these are all good to go right now. They are deer and rabbit resistant, and the blooms stay on these flowers for quite a while. So once again, this one's a real easy one to grow. Tolerates most things that you throw at it. Aloe hedgehog. This is a non-hardy plant that we grow in the greenhouse, so do not sell this as a hardy plant, zone 9. It does bloom early. You can see the flowers in the lower left. It's very similar to the ones outside in the pictures. I'm sure those are southwestern pictures. This is good for planters. You can put it on a patio. If you move it in to 40 degrees in the winter, it will survive. Where we keep it at in the greenhouse, we keep it at 34 degrees or try to throughout the winter. That holds the flowering back. So what we're trying to do is keep those flowers so they come into bloom after the April 15th when we release the plants inside the greenhouse. They are drought tolerant. This is an aloe. It's also called spineless hedgehog. There are what looks to be thorns on it or spines, but they don't really do much. Some of the plants we've had in the past can't say that for. This will get about 18 to 20 inches high and wide, and then when you put that spike on, you're going to add another 15, 18, 24 inches. Nice bright orange flower, low maintenance. If you do plant it out in the ground, make sure it's a well-drained, sandy soil. Next up is Junior Walker Nepeta. Claim to fame with this one is this is more dwarf. It's about a third to half the size of Walker's Low. Still gives you all the advantages of Walker Low. This will start blooming in mid-May, and it continues throughout the course of the summer. If you want to expedite the blooming, you can go in and deadhead it and just take a pair of head shears and trim them back, and they'll flush right back up. They will tolerate drought, so usually when we're talking perennials and they're drought tolerant, you're going to need a well-drained site, and it will be better off if that plant stays on the dry side. Don't put it in a poorly drained situation. More than likely, if it survives the summer, it will not survive the winter because you end up with crown rots. This is also considered a non-reseeding, so it does not replant it or repopulate itself. Sanguisorbia is one that we've added last couple of years. We usually have a problem with getting the liners here in time to get them to finish in spring. We do have some. If you look there in the lower left, you can see what they look like right now. These are from last year. They came in, they were ready to go about mid-June, so we actually missed the window, so we carried these forward. The crop for this year will probably be in the same situation, but you do have a nice selection of them for this year. As you can see, the pot and the picture on the far right are almost identical. It gives you a nice variegated leaf throughout the course of the summer. And then last year we did see them bloom. You see it gets this little red flower on it as well. So it's a neat little ground cover. I don't think it's something that anyone really knows a whole lot about. You can use it in rock gardens. It does prefer well drained. It needs steady moisture. It does not want to sit in heavy soils or poorly drained sites, but it does need to be well drained and it needs to be kept moist. These will start flowering about midsummer. It'll last for a good couple, 3-4 weeks from what we saw last year in the pots. And like I said, it's nice ground cover, 8 to 10 inches tall and wide.